Video killed the radio star is a great statement on the power of visuals. But then again, the opening lines of the Declaration of Independence or even the Book of Genesis are great statements about the power of the written word. Welcome to the show. This is episode 4 of Earbud U. Look, I could talk to marketers all day, but then this would be a marketing podcast instead of a conflict engagement podcast. Our good friend Elin Barton, who owns White Knight Productions, based out of Vestal, New York, is a lot of things. She's a mother, a wife, a business owner, a creative, a pioneer, and a visionary, but most importantly, she is a bootstrapper. Her story, and the story of White Knight Productions, is a story of patience, timing, and making your mark the second that you can, but not a second later, and not a second earlier. Look, what we say when we don't talk is more important than what we say when we open our mouths. Long has society recognized this, codifying it everywhere from proverbs to the writing of the founding fathers. Look, everyone knows keeping your mouth shut and monitoring your body language was used to be thought to be a gift rather than a learned skill. And in the world of the internet, body language and nonverbal communication is even more important with the rise of video over verbal and negotiation that combines the body and the voice. Now, with the usual stuff, you can connect with Earbud U on Twitter at earboard_U. You can also check us out on Instagram. We tweet and post images on both of those social platforms with the hashtag #BePartOfTheShow. We are part of our parent company, Human Services Consulting and Training, out of Endicott, New York. So check out the HSCT website at www.hsconsultingandtraining.com. Finally, as for Elin Barton and White Knight Productions, check her out, www.whiteknightpro.com. Her blog and booking information are all there. To connect with White Knight socially on Facebook and Twitter, just search White Knight Productions. Connect with Elin Barton professionally on LinkedIn for all of your video, content, marketing needs. And now, let's get into it.
Welcome to Earbud U, Episode 4. Get your knowledge on through your earbuds. Our special guest for our show today is Elin Barton, CEO of White Knight Productions. White Knight Productions is the premier video-driven marketing solutions provider in the southern tier of New York State, right around the Binghamton, Vestal, Johnson City area. Elin is an accomplished and passionate marketer, advertising advocate, speaker, and networker. And I'm proud to call her a friend of mine who really works really awesomely in this space, as we were just talking about. So, welcome to Earbud U, Elin.
Thanks, Jesan. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. So, let's start off for our listeners, kind of really talking about what it is that you do exactly. Let's really delve into that and kind of figure out who you are, who White Knight is, and kind of where you're going with this project.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. What I personally do is I have the pleasure of managing a wonderful team of passionate, excellence-driven marketers and artists here at White Knight. I think the one thing that defines us as a company and really is the exemplary word to talk about anybody that works here is this passion for excellence and this drive to keep producing work that's better than what we produced yesterday. We really provide, I think, big city quality here in Binghamton, New York, and we service a large regional area. But, obviously we're not located in the big city, but we're producing work that stands up.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, talk to me. You said you're not servicing a large regional area, and obviously, I'm working in the Binghamton area. You're working in the Binghamton area. We kind of know what that looks like. But for the benefit of our listeners who are kind of sort of outside of New York State or don't really have an idea of what not working in a large regional area means, why don't you talk to us a little bit about that? How does that play into the products and services that you offer clients?
Well, just to clarify, we are located in upstate New York. We're about 3 hours from New York City. I find when I speak to many people in other parts of the country, New York means only one thing, and that's the Big Apple. But, obviously our state's a lot larger than that. So here at White Knight, we work with clients that are local to this area, but we also work with people all over the region and the country. Jason, I need to cough. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, cough. It's okay. Go ahead, take a cough. It's all right.
No, we also work with people all over the region and the country, And that's the beauty of this modern day. Not so necessary to, even be face to face. Right now we're Skyping. So much can be done via internet and Dropbox and FTP sites and all of that. It isn't absolutely necessary to be physically in the same place as clients, and that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities.
Absolutely. And, one of the principles of, human services consulting and training, of which Earbud U is, the podcast division, is really the principle of building across boundaries, because the internet and the World Wide Web have sort of opened up, and I use the old term World Wide Web, but it sort of opened up the platforms. It sort of allowed us to create these platforms that allow us to really engage with folks, not just nationally, but also globally.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many possibilities now, and I think the ability as a marketer to, talk directly to the customer on a personal level is really exciting. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we do, I think, very well at White Knight, is not exploit social media, but use it very well. Of course, one of the things I think we do here at White Knight is to use social media very well to communicate directly to customers almost on a one-to-one basis, where we can target very carefully people's interests and their likes, what they're looking for in a product or what they're interested in with the product, and talk to them directly. It's very easy to segment the market, and I think that's a big strength.
Now, how do you create those kinds of segments? Like, what does that process look like?
Well, it's a little different for every client we're working with, and a lot of it depends on their goals and strategies that we put into place. But it's a lot of analytics defining their target market, and the more carefully you can identify those targets, the more carefully you can message to those specific demographics.
Absolutely. I mean, we live in a world of metrics and analytics and big data now. Yeah. I'm reading a book actually on predictive analytics right now. It's something that's absolutely fascinating to me. And I've read, the opposite of that, the Nicholas Nassim Taleb, the black swan type theories around, predicting future events and, becoming really predictive. But big data, we're gathering that, and that's one of the things that I say during my presentations and trainings, particularly around the social media area. We're gathering all this data. How are we using it to make wise decisions? We have all this intelligence, but maybe the wisdom part is really lagging behind.
Yeah, I think that can be true. And I think that it's possible for certain business people to perhaps use it for unscrupulous reasons. But of course, that's not.
No, not unscrupulous reasons.
Well, I think that, with all that knowledge comes a certain level of power, and you've seen enough movies and read the news enough to know that when people who have lesser morals than you or I may gather some of this information and use it for their own benefit, which is probably a really bad tangent to go down, Jesan.
Yeah, we're not gonna go down that tangent in this interview right now. We're gonna kind of keep it above the table. But you and I both have our we've talked, and we haven't talked about it, but I'm sure if you and I talked about it long enough, we'd come to probably some similar conclusions around the nature of how big data is used and those kinds of things, those kinds of applications. But as you said, I like the term there, unscrupulous people. But let's talk about working in Europe, because I know you have a background in doing that, and I know you worked with Technicolor. So talk to me about working in Europe. Kind of what was that process like? What was it like to really work inside of a European cultural structure? Because as an American, obviously I come from a certain historical and cultural mindset and background, but Europe is something a little bit different, obviously. And so talk to me a little bit about that. What was that experience like?
That experience was really the foundation for a lot of the work I do now, and was the beginning of my professional life after college. Working in Europe was very interesting. My first job was working at a radio station in Prague, And I was on air on the radio station doing news, and I also had a cultural show, which was fantastic because I was allowed the possibility to go to a lot of shows and art exhibits and concerts and things, and review these events and speak to the artists. It was really a great job. So that was fantastic. But
and Prague is just a cultural mecca. I mean, it's Prague,
Yeah, it's a beautiful city. I was actually there for 5 years and had a lot of, wonderful experiences traveling and also working. After the radio station, I moved on and worked in the film studio. They have quite a large film studio called Barrandov, and I got to work on a couple of feature films, which was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot working with mainly American and international crews, and then there was always a Czech component to the crews as well. And where I tended to gravitate was to the production office, so I learned so much about managing production and working at a very high level. Also, I spoke Czech, so I had to learn all those words in Czech.
Wait. You spoke Czech. Do you remember any Czech? Do you know any Czech?
Well,
can we get a sample of that?
I think it's a little rusty, but
hey, for the benefit of our Czech listeners, how would you give them, say, a shout out? How would that sound?
It would say "Dobrý den, jak se máte?"
That does not sound rusty to me. That sounds fabulous. I can't do that. I can't. I don't have that capacity. I can say hola, and that's about the extent of my foreign language expertise. So awesome. Well, you said you're working on multicultural crews. This is, I'm a conflict resolution guy. I'm a conflict communication guy. I'm at my core, peace building, mediation, that kind of stuff, but also the social stuff, which opens up an entirely different area for conflict. But when you're there working with a multicultural crew, Czechs, Americans, and I'm assuming folks from all other countries in Europe, what is that like? Like, how do you navigate? And maybe you weren't managing them, but how did you see the folks who were managing those crews navigate that process? And I'm fascinated by feature films, so we're going to kind of go down this road a little bit too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was very interesting working in that environment and being one of the foreigners that could speak the language, because there definitely was a divide. There was an economic divide where the Americans were making more money and essentially had the power, even though the films were co-produced with Czech crews. The Americans were truly making the decisions. I don't really know how conflicts were managed, because I don't think they were managed well. Mm-hmm. I think that there was
and that's one of the principles. Not to interrupt you, but that's one of the principles of conflict resolution is that not all conflict is managed well. Like that's one of the principles, and that's why I exist to work in this space. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, it's almost 99% of the time it's almost never managed well. So.
Yeah, I think they definitely could have used your expertise there a bit. The way that it was done was there was a leader of the Czech crew that would meet with the Americans and then just pass on information. But the reason it really wasn't managed well is it was mostly directives that were passed on rather than questions. So I can't say that there was a huge amount of conflict, but I think it could have been better. Yeah, I think
and when
there were underlying resentments. There was it wasn't a terrible situation, but there's always room for improvement.
Right. Well, and you know what? You take from those situations and you take from those experiences, and then you take the good and you take the bad, and you try to distill out the good, and you try to move forward with that as you build your own company, and as you build your own idea and your own project. You said there was a lot of top-down management style. Is that sort of how you would describe it?
Yeah, it is, and I think that's normal for many organizations. I think it's normal for feature films because things have to get done on schedule, and it's people know their position, and there's not a lot of time for discussion.
Right. Well, and you know what I mean. You said it was 5 years after you or you worked there for 5 years.
I was there for 5 years.
In that process for 5 years. Okay, after you got out of college. I won't have you tell me when you got out of college. I won't have you tell me when that year was. But I'm assuming that was either close to or around the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall and sort of those kinds of political and economic and cultural shifts as well, right?
Yeah, it was actually right after that. So I graduated in 91 and went over there and had been there previously as well. I first traveled to Eastern Europe in, I think it was 88. Mm-hmm. So even between 88 and 91, a lot of things changed. And it was a very interesting time to be there. When I first moved to the Czech Republic, there were a lot of things you couldn't get, like salad, bananas, just normal things. And that definitely changed during the 5 years. Towards the end, there was a McDonald's, or actually I think there were more than one McDonald's. Not that I would frequent them, but there were, all these chains coming in, and it was getting very, very westernized. After I worked on a couple of feature films, I went on and worked with this video production company that did a lot of advertising across Europe. And that was very interesting because their campaigns, their commercials would run throughout Europe. And there's a lot of different, cultural concerns in all the different countries and, things to talk about. It was very interesting. Even making something as simple as, a coffee ad or whatever, you had to consider, well, how does this look in Italy or how does this look in England?
Yeah, what are the metrics in Russian for well, maybe not Russian, but what are the metrics in French for this ad? What are the metrics in Spanish for this ad? What are the metrics in Hungarian for this ad? And then breaking down into different, I'm assuming different dialects even in those languages, and how does that play off?
Right.
So okay.
Right.
Well, now the process of going through this very formative experience, working in Europe and working in Prague and being involved in that process must have given you some mentors or some people that you looked up to. So why don't you talk with us about who those individuals were in advertising or marketing, or did you just come out and you said, you know what, totally clean, I'm going to come to this thing, totally is the wind driven snow, and I'm going to be good?
No, I mean, I think you are, at least my perspective is to always be learning from everybody I'm working with. And I'm just always interested in reading books and learning what people think and trying to soak up as much knowledge as possible. So in Prague, I worked with a great advertising man. His name was James Joyce, and he was English. And a great director, Valentine Weidum. He was Dutch. And I just learned so much from both of them. James Joyce was just such a character and had this old school advertising mindset and so many great stories.
Oh, you got stories.
He had great stories, and he was fabulous.
What's a story that you could tell us that he had a sort of I'm assuming because I love the old school sort of crusty Don Draper types who are still around.
Don Draper.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, that's the paradigm, right, that we've set up now because of the show Mad Men. But I love those old school crusty types. I could sell a pair of pants 10,000 pieces in 10 minutes, for one commercial, and then I went out and had a couple of drinks. Was he that kind of guy, or was he more of the, let's sort of honor the customers, or honor the audience's, not really the customer, but honor the audience's mindset? I mean, how did he come down on that?
He wasn't so crusty. I've worked with some of those as well. But James Joyce was just someone that had a big perspective. He'd worked throughout Europe for his career and brought so much to the table, just brought so many insights into anything that was being discussed, and took all the campaigns we ever worked on to a new level. He was one of those people that could just, say a word or move the text over just a little bit, and it made all the difference. Or he would tell us to tweak the color in that the cereal commercial and just make it a little bit more red. And he just had this amazing innate ability to make it great.
Yeah.
And
is he?
Yeah, and he was just a wonderful person to work with.
Is he? I don't know. Is he still working today? Is he still around? What is he?
He retired from advertising, and he moved to a small town in England and became a postmaster.
Awesome!
He's awesome, right?
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, he is fantastic, and I've had the pleasure to work with a few other old school advertising people. And I think that even with the digital age and with all of this great technology that we were talking about, there's so much to be said for, drawing on those big pads of paper and the old way of doing things, the old process of thinking, the tangible items that you create and you touch and you interact with. I think there's so much to be said for that, and there's something about the process of making that's, I think, not duplicatable with a computer, to be honest.
Well, it's interesting to me, and I'm of course seeing this from the perspective of someone who's coming in, who's in their 30s coming in. I'm probably, and I often tell these people, I'm probably the last generation. I'm part of the last generation, as is anybody who's in their mid to early 30s, the last generation to actually remember when there was no internet,
right?
No Google, and so I'm at that weird age where the crossover happened in my lifetime. I remember in 1994 hearing about the internet and going, I don't know what, I was in high school at the time. Like, I don't know what that means. I'm going to go outside and shoot hoops. I don't know. And seeing advertisements on TV. And even then, filtering out, and I was getting more of an artistic eye, but even then filtering out kind of what was good and what was bad, and I was really getting into film and really getting into movies and really becoming engaged with sort of thematic enterprises. I remember sitting down watching Braveheart and going, this is, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was inside of Mel Gibson, and really figuring out which director's vision I liked and which ones I didn't. And then as I've, built my business and coming more into the marketing aspect, I will say this: I am a sucker for the digital stuff. I am, I was watching. What was I watching the other day? I was talking with my wife about this. I was watching daytime television, which I never watch, and there was some advertisement that came on for JCPenney, and now think about the slot for this ad. It's a national ad for JCPenney. It's a great ad with a woman, and there's like pants, and there's a mom and a bunch of kids, and you talk about the red being just right. The red was just right, and the blue was just right. It was this tangible object, but at the same time, in the lower, right hand corner of the screen, there was an imprinted hashtag for what is mom. And I'm thinking, why would you do that when you're advertising and running the spot at 12:30 on a Monday afternoon? Like, your audience that's going to be seeing this is not your target audience. Is going to be seeing this is going to go buy pants from JCPenney, which is what you're moving here. They don't even know. They're confused by that. They don't even know what that is, and it went by just like that. So and when I see this in local things too, just as a parallel, where sometimes I'll complain to my wife, why are we using advertising to sell me the internet? Like, I know you're there. I know you're on social media. I can go find you. But I'm at that weird intersection, whereas folks who are younger than I, they're not fascinated with the the actual the artifact itself. They're not as fascinated with that. They're very, very comfortable with the digital content piece. So.
Yeah, and I think digital is great too. There's so much we can do with it, and I'm not, saying not to use it by any means.
No.
Not at all. But I do think that being able to do both is valuable. I guess I'm just a couple of years older than you, and do remember not having the internet. I think there's a lot of value to that. I see that in my kids. They're always connected, and sometimes in myself. Like today, we're trying out this new super high-speed fiber optic connection for our internet here at work. And for some reason on my laptop, which I was working on today, I kept getting knocked off of the internet. And I had this this reaction of, oh no, I can't work. But of course I can work.
Right.
I don't need the internet.
Yeah.
So I think, it just needs to be balanced. We need to be able to do both.
Oh, yeah. And, I have a bachelor in fine arts. So, a lot of the stuff that I do for my business comes from having that fine art perspective. And, having a wife who's a photographer is also helpful. She keeps me in check, about what's good and what's not. Let's talk a little bit about the type of content that you create with White Knight Productions. A lot of it is obviously native to, the digital spaces, native to the web, native to YouTube, and you guys are really, really navigating that space really awesomely right now. I'd like to give a shout out to your YouTube channel. Everybody go look at it. Doing some amazing stuff with local vendors and plenty of others. But how do you develop content that's native to platforms? Because as well as I do, Instagram, Facebook, these social distribution channels, which is how I think of them. I think of them as CBS, Fox, UPN, the WB, I think of them as digital, in essence, digital channels, not necessarily content creation machines. But how do you develop native content when you're working with a client that maybe doesn't understand what that means and this thinks content is content is content and just push it already,
Well,
how do you have that educational conversation? Is in essence what I'm asking, because I'm an educational guy. How do you have that educational conversation? And then the sub question to that is, how do you develop that content?
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about video content, anytime we're developing content for the web, which I'd like to differentiate from strictly an ad, but content for the web, we're always thinking about the audience and what they want to see, and what would be of value to them. A lot of what we produce is educational on some level. Mm-hmm. So it's, in my experience, it hasn't been a hard sell to convince the client to go in that direction. We typically have very good relationships with our clients and have put a lot of investment into working with them up front to come up with a strategy that makes sense. Our usual process is to define their overall goals and then work on that strategy that everybody's comfortable with. And right. From the strategy comes the tactics, the things, the actual physical things you're going to do to achieve the goals.
The goals.
And, by the time we get to the point of actually developing content, we're pretty much normally on the same page.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. But you're you're obviously the person that's going to go in and say, just like James did, hey, let's make it a little more red.
Right.
Yeah. Or let's make that wall behind you a little bit more purple. Or let's knock down that green over there because those two colors, whatever. You're gonna kind of make that decision. At a certain point, right? The client's gonna sort of trust you with that, right?
Right, and that's, in an ideal world, that's exactly what happens. And sometimes it's our job to very gently say no to the clients if they're a little misguided and, try to steer them in a different direction. We always think about our work as very collaborative. Mm-hmm. And because we put so much stake and so much time and investment into that initial process, we usually don't have too many problems. That's our approach to conflict management.
Right. Yes, good.
To be really good listeners and to have the discussions up front so that everybody understands before there's a heated, emotionally laden, thing happening. So that's kind of been our approach. That said, sometimes it does happen that the client is asking for something that really won't serve them well, and at that point, we definitely attempt to have a conversation that would, help them. Help us help you. A conversation.
Help us help you. Help me help you.
Yeah.
Yes, help me help you. As a consultant, I have, particularly in conflict resolution. Oh my gosh, because by the time the client brings me in, stuff has already happened. The emotional content is already there. And I've had clients where, I have to sit down and say, listen, I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. And this is how this is going to happen. and you can make a decision if this is a direction you want to go down. Either I can work with you either way. It's just one way will be more difficult, one way will be less difficult, but either way there's going to be difficulty because of the space we're at right now, which is why human services consulting and training and Earbud U really focuses on, like you said, the collaborative piece and the skills training piece, which is really, really key for brand development over here, but it's really, really key. The collaborative piece is for White Knight as well, and I really do like that.
Yeah, I do too. That's one of my favorite parts of my job is working closely with clients. And I think a lot of the conflict is alleviated because in so much as it's possible, we really work on setting up expectations up front and making sure everybody's clear. Sometimes we even have, for new clients, sometimes we even have a set of rules, like this is your job and this is our job. And I like to try to spell everything out as much as possible, because when it's clear, it just solves problems down the road, and I think it helps you get to that level of trust faster.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the frustrations, because I know as a person building a business, there are times when, and one of my favorite movies is High Fidelity. I use this example all the time. It was one of my favorite films. Actually just got my wife to watch it the other day, finally for the first time. One of my favorite films. And, he's in there and he's depressed, and he's like, why don't I just pack it all in and go work at a coconut? He built this old school record store in Chicago from nothing. And, he's having all these other life problems, and he hits that tipping point where he's just like, I'm going to go over the edge. I'm finished. I'm going to drop it all. I'm out, and just run away. And sometimes I have those moments as well. And so I've asked every Earbud U guest, do you ever have that moment, at White Knight, where you're sitting there one day, like you said, you got the new fiber optic, high speed, whiz bang internet. Is there any point in time where you're just sitting there going, with a client, or maybe just quietly in your office, you're just like, you know what? I could put all this down, and I don't know, I could work at Guitar Center or something. Like, I could just go around the corner and manage a Guitar Center, and then just go home, have a 9 to 5, and live my life, and it'd be good. Like, do you ever have that? Do you ever have that? I'm gonna go to Coconuts kind of moment?
Well, I think anybody would be lying to you if they said they never had a moment, or it never got tough like that. I think in any small business or any large business as well, there's definitely challenging moments. But for me, I never seriously contemplated it. I am very attached to the business and my team here. I feel a deep commitment to everybody to not go work at Coconuts. Not that there's anything wrong with Coconuts, but
no, there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't exist anymore. It's fine. It doesn't. I mean,
But no, I mean, for me, I'm my default is, okay, we're in this really tough situation. What do we do now? Like, I'm always like looking to go forward, and when people present me with a problem, I really do my best to be like, okay. That's great. Maybe this is an opportunity. So I'm always trying to turn it around and look at the upside, because I do believe to a certain extent that opportunities are often disguised as problems. And, there's been many challenges with our company. We kind of bootstrapped it to start, and that presents many, many challenges, from getting equipment to getting staff to office space, all kinds of things. And it's perhaps not, looking back on it, perhaps the way we started the business is probably not what I would recommend to a new person coming in.
Oh, hey, I will sometimes tweet out, in frustration, hey, I'm bootstrapping over here. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, it's hard, and we still come up against that these days. We have a lot of great clients. We're really busy, but there's still things that we would like to do we can't afford to do yet, and so we look for alternative ways to manage, and it's made us running lean and mean like we have been. It's made us innovative. We've done amazing work on low budget sometimes, not perhaps ideal, but it's made us really good at what we do. And I'm often amazed at the quality work that comes out. And the upside of that story is the quality of work that comes out is now attracting bigger and bigger clients. So there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. Well, you know what? I love bootstrapping, and I have a special. Obviously, you know, I'm a bootstrapper myself. I have a special place in my heart for bootstrappers and organizations that bootstrap, because I think, you know, you always see, you know, these or hear about organizations like, and the biggest example right now in the social media world are the WhatsApp guys, you know, who got, you know, who just barely made, you know, and maybe just barely is a little bit of an exaggeration, but, you know, just got bought, you know, by Facebook before having to, you know, having to really tangibly sort of deal with their burn rate issues, you know, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, VC funding is so tenuous, and so, and I understand why startups do it, you know, I get it, but at the same time, how much equity do you own? You know, and with White Knight, you know, you're building something with equity that you own, that's yours, you know, and if you do decide to give it away, you already know what the value of it, or not give it away, but sell it, you know what the value of it is already, and you know, you're in it for the long haul. You know, a great consulting friend of mine who works up north in Albany told me one time there's only two kinds of consultants, Jesan. There's prize fighters that take everything and they become the brand themselves, and then there's people who build brand equity, you know, and you guys are building brand equity, you know, for the long term. So I'm really kind of amazed with that. So I like the White Knight logo. Talk to me about how you got to that logo. Like, where did the name White Knight come from? Where did that logo come from? Talk me through that process. Like, what is the significance of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The name came out of many discussions and exploration of what names were, you know, possible based on what's available. You know, that was
right.
Honestly part of it. But we really liked White Knight. We liked the connotation of we like the connotation of being kind of a company with integrity, you know, kind of noble in a positive way, you know, not in a snooty way. We really like the idea of coming in and saving the day. Now that we've been in the company is now 5 years old, and I don't know if it's entirely accurate, this idea of coming in and saving, you know, rescuing whatever needs rescuing. I don't think that's really accurate, because what the reality is a lot more collaborative than that. It's much more of a partnership with our clients. So perhaps that was a little bit of a misconception we had at the beginning, to be honest, but now we do have brand equity.
Right.
Everybody at my company is proud to be a Knight with a capital K. And, right. You know, there is something about that. Our work is very strong. We all feel very, almost most days, you know, almost privileged to come to work and get to work with these great people and on these great projects. And, you know, I toy with the idea of changing the name sometimes. To tell you the truth, we've transformed as a company from a video production team to a full ad agency. So we're still going by White Knight Productions. I toy with White Knight Creative, or, you know, some other variation on that. I haven't made a decision on that yet, or maybe even something totally different to reflect the new face of the agency. Right. So I see everything as an evolution. We aren't the same company we were 5 years ago, and 5 years from now will be different as well.
Absolutely.
We just keep improving, and that's my goal, is to just keep getting better. I don't want to stagnate.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you know what I mean, as as you make that, you said you made that shift from just doing video, I want to use that in air quotes, to being I see you, and I mean I'm looking at it from the outside, so one of the things that interests me is always what people see of my business from the outside, and then try to tell me, hey, you should do this. I'm like, yeah, okay, great, thank you, go away. But what so now I'm going to do it to you. But what I see from the outside is, you guys transitioning to, like you said, that full service ad agency, sort of in that old school mode, but with definitely using those new school tools. And there's a lot of strong competition in this area in the ad agency field, which is like kind of surprising in the Binghamton Southern Tier area. I'm kind of surprised by that.
Why are you surprised by that? There's so many talented people here.
There are a lot of talented people. I do not disagree with that. There are a lot of talented people. There are a lot of very, very bright, creative folks. I mean, Binghamton University, obviously, being the epicenter of that, as well as SUNY Broome. But it's one of the knocks against this area, and again, coming from the outside, coming from Minnesota, coming here, not knowing anything, not knowing anybody. One of the things you'll hear if you sit down, and you sit down with somebody for like 5 minutes who's been here for like the last 30, 40 years is, oh, this area ain't what it used to be, back in the day, and then they start having the back of the day conversation. But when you see, the ad agencies popping up, I always wonder, who are the clients, that these places are pursuing. But, like I said, you got some strong competition. You got Hue, they're doing some amazing things. You got Ad Elements, they're doing some amazing things. And of course, a couple of others. Grey Goose, is kind of developing into and they kind of came out of nowhere for me. I kind of didn't see them coming. And I find that to be very interesting. But you've got all these little ad agencies, and, eventually at a certain point, some of you are going to call me in to negotiate a contract between the two of you, so somebody could buy out somebody else.
There you go.
I'm betting on you. I'm betting on White Knight. That's what I'm betting on. Putting all my chips on on White. Well, I liked how you talked about creative integrity. What does that look like for you? Because as a person who has a background in the fine arts, as I said, creative integrity is something that's very, very critical to me. And I had a background in printmaking, I have a background in printmaking. So for me, creative integrity is about quality control. Everything's got to look the same coming out. Boom, 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 boom. Because when you're hand rolling 180 prints, they've all got to look alike.
Right.
How does that show up for a transitioning, ad agency like White Knight? What does that creative integrity look like?
It looks like a lot of things. It looks like attention to detail. It means that things don't go out the door unless, what we say internally is nothing goes out the door unless we think it can win an award. So I don't know if that's something we should say publicly or not, but that's the standard that we hold ourselves to. Like, we really feel like we want to reflect excellence in all the work we put out. So we're our own toughest critics, and we foster a collaborative environment here at work. So before anything does get shown to a client or go out, it undergoes a pretty intense internal review, and things that perhaps the layperson may not even notice, or and sometimes it's a little frustrating to me as the manager of the company. Little things need to get tweaked because it's not right, not
right.
perfect
or
whatever. And I never hear anybody here say, "Oh, it's just an ad. Oh, it's just, just a billboard."
Oh, that's just something that's just gonna,
That's just not the White Knight way, and we do hold ourselves to the standard, and that's what we call the White Knight way. We just have developed this reputation, and it's definitely internally driven. And it helps define who we hire coming on. It has to be somebody that values, quality, values good work, and results. It's artistically, we want everything to look wonderful and as perfect as possible. But ultimately, we're looking for results for the client. So that always comes into play. We integrate the whole strategic plan with the art, and I think that's the success model. That's what has worked for us.
Yeah. Well, and you're an entrepreneur, so you're thinking about, because everything you put out there has like you said, has your name attached to it, has your brand attached to it. And so it's like your baby. You put out a new baby out there every single time you let something out into the world. I like that. Nothing goes out the door unless it can win an award. I like that attitude. That's a very strong attitude. How do you, everybody has, life hacks and process hacks. What are some process hacks that, without giving away anything, but what are some process hacks that you guys have for bringing a project from idea to finish? How are you doing that? I'm not telling you to give me the entire process, but, what are some shortcuts that you've developed or some tools that you found work really well for you?
To bring a project from idea to finish, it's a tough question to answer because it really depends on the project and the medium that we're producing the work for. So I guess in general, we typically would begin with a brainstorming session to nail down the idea in the first place. And the budget is always got to be considered at that point, because you can have these amazing ideas that would require, weeks of shooting if it's a commercial or whatever, and that just may not be realistic. So we need to get on the same page as much as possible in that early part of the process.
Right.
And
your brainstorming sessions have to be just amazing. Like, do you just bring your entire team into a room, you close the door, and you're like, okay, spaghetti at the wall time?
Yeah, and that's really part of the fun, and that's what I hear from. We do have a good, we do have a great internal team here, but we also work with a variety of subcontractors and partners, freelancers. And what I often hear from people who are working more independently is that they miss that collaborative process. And of course, we bring them in from time to time on various projects. But I think for our core team, that's probably one of the favorite parts of their job, is to really just let loose with your imagination, and anything goes. And that's where some of the best ideas come from. Right. So that's where all the great projects start.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a bad idea. It's just, what ideas can we afford?
Exactly. So we have a big blackboard, and we have whiteboards in the conference room where we typically meet, and lots of colored pens and chalk, and we just kind of go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's amazing to me, kind of listening to the process, because as a solo practitioner, or as a freelancer, sometimes I do freelance work, and being a consultant is half the time, actually not even half, a third of the time I'm a consultant. The other third of my time, I'm a freelancer, and the other third of my time I get to be an entrepreneur and go out and try to build a model, and then break that model, and then go build another one. And so, just listening to that, the collaborative piece and sitting in a room with 10 other people and kind of getting out of your own head, that's the greatest thing. To me, even just talking to you, that sounds like the greatest thing ever. The decisions I make as a solopreneur, I make them and I live with them, because I've decided after much internalized thought process, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and it's going to work. I'm just going to make it work. But, sitting in a room with a team, though, that's a little bit of a different thing. You have to take the temperature of the room. You're engaging in emotional intelligence. You're figuring out, whose ideas are really, really good. And, of course, the members on your team. So, who's going to be lifted up, who's going to sit there and shut down if an idea doesn't work, who's going to get overly enthusiastic, who's going to be a little more quiet and then come to the forefront. You kind of know all this, and it changes the nature of the collaborative conversation.
Yeah, very much so. And being very collaborative and inclusive, there's our team, we're not really shy. We've worked together for a long time, and it's definitely fun to be part of that process, but I think it's critical to the development of ideas. I know that there are creative folks out there that do the creative work, and they do the sales, and they do the bookkeeping, and and all of that. And I admire them, but I'm glad I don't have to do that. I'm just really thankful that we have a team. I tend to do the client relations and the business side of things, and I love participating in the creative meetings, but I'm very thankful to be able to hand off the responsibility for most of the creative to other people, because that's their expertise, and we all have our thing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's great to be on a team when everybody's bringing their strengths to the table. And one of the things I'm really big on is employee development and helping everyone that works here achieve their goals. So we're always looking to see where we can provide, training or enhancement or, whatever it is. We typically have a meeting every Monday just to go over projects, and we have a rotating show and tell where everybody has to bring something to the table every few weeks.
Ooh.
And just discuss it. It can be a cool ad campaign they saw, a cool video, or new component, new software we should get that would make the work process better. It really could be anything, but knowing that you're responsible to bring that in every few weeks it's a little bit of pressure, but it's really fun. It's really fun to see what other people are doing.
Right.
So we try things like that, and we're toying with the idea of we have a blog, and we're toying with the idea of having the team take turns blogging on topics that aren't necessarily their field of expertise. So Ashley she's our marketing director. Yep. So she may have to do a blog on motion graphics, and our motion graphics artist may need to do a blog on marketing. But the advantage of that, not only would Ashley learn about motion graphics in her research, she might find out something new that our motion graphics artist didn't even know. So we're toying with the idea. The thing that's holding us back from implementing that is just time. Everybody's really busy, and I hate to put more on them. But it's an interesting idea, and we may implement it in the new year.
Well, as you know, I'm an extensive blogger, and I blog every day. Gonna be bumping it up. The human services consulting and training communication blog. Gonna be bumping it up to twice a day, every day, starting here pretty soon. And so I'm a prolific, writer and blogger. I absolutely believe in blogging because I believe it's a platform you own. And I read a lot of other bloggers, and I look at what they're doing and how they're navigating the blogging territory. And it's content that you own, particularly, obviously, you own your own website, you own your own domain, and you're building fans and building, as Seth Godin would say, you're building your own little tribe there. And you are. Over there, why not? You're building your own tribe there, And so I am a big proponent of blogging. I encourage you guys to blog. Please blog more. I want to see what's going. I would love to hear Ashley's perspective on motion graphics. Yep. That would be absolutely amazing to read.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely something that we're putting on the schedule, because I know it's important. Yeah. And for us, we're a small company. One of the challenges is that everybody has so many responsibilities. Yep. And sometimes blogging can seem like, just another thing we have to do.
Just another one more thing we have to do. Yeah.
So it's hard. I like to write, and so it's one of the things I want to take on more. And we're in the process of hiring another person to take away some of the other things from my plate so that can happen.
Well, and that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, and being a business owner too is figuring out kind of what you can take off your plate and what you can keep on your plate. Like Mark Zuckerberg doesn't code every day anymore. He doesn't need to. He has 100 other people that code for him sitting in a room somewhere. So he can do other things like, run Facebook.
Right. Yeah, it's all just juggling. And it's fine on some level, but there's so much value in bringing in people that are experts in whatever it is. Right now I'm looking for a project manager, and there's very qualified people out there that are better at project management than I am, I'm certain. And, it just frees up more time to do blogging.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. Well, and also, to do speaking and training and really to expand the White Knight brand beyond, because I know you're an ambitious person, and so I know you're looking to expand that brand. I know you got to have some territories in mind and some geographic locations of where you like to see, this idea go.
Yeah.
And every good entrepreneur that's especially one that's bootstrapped knows expansion is the only way to survive,
Yeah,
particularly in this economy. Well, we've had a really good conversation. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. Talk to me about, I like what you said about employee development. Talk to me about how you maintain employee loyalty. I'm fascinated by customer loyalty programs. Only from the perspective that they don't work and QR codes kill me. This is between you, me, and the wall. They just absolutely kill me. But how do you engage in employee loyalty? How do you keep your team loyal to you? It sounds as though you've really developed that core team around White Knight. How do you maintain their interest and keep them coming in and day out?
Well, I think the nature of our company makes that a little easier than perhaps some other types of businesses, because one of the things that people say that they want in a job is that creativity. We offer that. That's our business, is fostering the creativity in our team. And I think coming to work and having that be your job is pretty cool and fulfilling on levels that have nothing to do with money or other, benefits. I would say that our loyalty comes a lot less from money and other benefits than from the ability to be creative, the respect for one another's work, the collaborative atmosphere. Of course, we try to provide perks as much as possible. We're very busy, but we make an effort to go out as a team
right.
now and then and get a pizza or, grab a couple of drinks. And it helps that everybody likes each other.
Yeah.
Out together. There's not a lot of conflict. We hire very carefully. So the people that I'm always looking for are very positive and upbeat and forward thinkers, big thinkers. And I think that being in this atmosphere, I would venture to say that that people like to come to work, for the most part. I'm sure that there's parts of everybody's job that they are less enthusiastic about than others, but I really think we've created something here where we're proud of what we do. We like doing it. Mm-hmm. We like each other, and I think that's created the loyalty to the company.
Awesome.
Awesome. We also have a policy of you're only allowed to complain to me. There's no complaining to each other. So I think that helps. Like I'm all about being positive.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of personal development and leadership development. I try to the best of my abilities to keep offering all the employees opportunities to grow and to kind of try to coach them to to become the people that they want to be, to have the career path that they want to have. And at a certain point when they are ready to leave the company, I always try to make that very positive and say, how can I support you? What, let me help you get to your next step. You're not leaving, you're always a knight.
Yeah, you're always a knight. I love that. You're always a knight. Let me support you. Let me help you. Let me prepare you for the next great opportunity. I love that. That is an entrepreneurial attitude. I love that. Well, my last question is, I always ask my guests the hypothetical battle question. And I always have fun with this. So I try to pick two people from a particular field, and I always ask people to kind of do a thought process in their brain. So, Seth Godin, Mitch Joel, two bald guys, got the dome, the chrome domium kind of thing going on there. Both got the glasses, both got a certain marketing ad agency look. Seth Godin, giant monster in his area. Mitch Joel, giant monster, one of the 40 best, Canadians under 40 working in the field of marketing and ad and with an ad agency right now. Both guys, who I follow, and I consume a lot of what they put out there, and try to apply it to how I run my business and how I think about the marketing for what I'm doing. But if a marketing rap battle, were to occur between Seth Godin and Mitch Joel, as an expert in this field, as a person who's been in this space for a while, in your opinion, who would win? Hypothetical battle.
Hypothetical battle. So I have to ask you, so a conflict resolution guy is putting kind of this battle question. What is it all about?
Hey, I gotta create a conflict so I can come in and solve it, right?
Because there may not be a conflict. There may be room for everybody.
There might be room for everybody. I'm not saying there's not, but
everybody has bits of wisdom. It's kind of how I feel about you talked about the ad agencies here locally. I think there's a place for everybody, to a certain extent. I really do. I think that, certain clients mesh better with certain people, and both of those gentlemen certainly have great advice to give. And I don't know. I'm just not seeing them fighting it out. Are you?
Well, I know they both sat on panels before, and I know behind the scenes, they're going back and forth and having conversations. So this is not the most difficult hypothetical battle. I asked a previous guest about Bob Dylan versus Neil Diamond. So
wow.
So it's just one of those. It's just one of those things. Well, I would like to thank you, Elin, for joining us today on Earbud U. We had a great conversation. Really kept it moving, and I learned a lot about where White Knight is, about your background, and about what you're passionate about. And so I want to thank you for coming on today.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for listening to another episode of Earbud U. Get your knowledge on through your earbuds. We talked today with Elin Barton, CEO of White Knight Productions. Take time to follow us on Twitter at EarbudU, or follow us on Instagram, also at EarbudU. We are online. Check out the Human Services Consulting and Training website at www.hsconsultingandtraining.com. Click on the Earbud U link to download our latest episode. Join us next time where we'll have another special guest and we'll talk more and get more knowledge on through your earbuds. Good night.